What's going on, No Horsing Around family? Back at it again. Another edition of No Horsing Around podcast today. Super excited. I'm a fan of Colts Loyalist. You guys all follow along with the stuff he does with, Lawrence Owen out there. They do a great job. I wanted to get him on my podcast just because this is a selfish podcast. I'm a fan of what Colts Loyalist does and his perspectives. How you doing, man?
Awesome. It's funny to hear you say you're a fan of me, and I've been following you guys now since April, pretty much. When I started getting into this realm of fandom, so it's sort of weird hearing you say that.
Yeah, man. I'm super excited to have you on here. So everybody's listening to this podcast. The debate is Carson Wentz a top 10 quarterback in the NFL? So I came up with a list of about 14 or 15 names. Loyalists and I are going to kind of go back and forth and say, I think right now he's better than him. Right now, I don't think he's quite at that level. And we're going to try to put, a pin on the needle here and see if he is a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. So this one's going to be fun. Not going to be a super long one, guys. We're asking you to like, rate, review, subscribe, and join the No Horsing Around family. That's the biggest thing. We're a big family. We're a big community here. And that's what we want you guys to do. Just be a part of that. So light us up in the comments on the YouTube section. And Loyalists, I'm going to kick it right off, man, and we'll go through the list. And some of these will be pretty quick because they're kind of self-explanatory, and then some will have to debate a little bit more. So obviously, Patrick Mahomes is not playing the best this year, but I think it's pretty fair to say Patrick Mahomes is a step above Carson Wentz. Would you agree with that?
Yes. Just plain and simple. Keep it short. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, I think that one's pretty simple. Lamar Jackson, we all see what he did to us. As much as I hate to admit it, I think probably at this stage right now, Lamar Jackson would probably be ranked a little bit higher than Carson Wentz. Where are you at with that as well?
Yeah, I agree because, his running game there's nobody that matches it. I mean, I know there's people that try to emulate it, but he is a one of a kind in the running game. And as we saw, in that fourth quarter, he can sling the rock when he needs to.
Absolutely, 100%. Here's a young guy. I'm kind of interested in your perspective. Quick answer is Joe Burrow. I think probably most people like Joe Burrow a little bit more as a younger quarterback, and probably a little bit further ahead of Carson Wentz as we're speaking and recording this podcast right now. What are your thoughts, Loyalists, on Joe Burrow right now?
And this is, I'm not trying to beat up on the guy or anything, but for me, I just need to see more. I mean, we've seen Carson at his high, and we've seen Carson at his low, and we've seen him at his middle. I just feel like, and it's harder for these guys that have only been playing a year or two for me to sit there and put him above a Carson Wentz, because when Carson's playing, his normal or high level football, he's good. I think very highly of Carson Wentz.
Yeah, I would agree with that. This is going to be the first, I feel like, fringe debatable topic right here. Baker Mayfield. I'll go first. I think Carson Wentz is a better quarterback than Baker Mayfield. I'm not calling Cal Hurd here, and I'm not going to go crazy on Baker Mayfield because I think Baker Mayfield actually has done some good things down there in Cleveland. I think he's cleaned up his act, and he's really, worried about playing football and less of that, outside press conference stuff. But if I had to pick between those two quarterbacks, I think I'd take Carson Wentz 10 out of 10 times. Where are you at with that, Loyalist?
Here again, I'm not trying to copy you. I'm just agreeing with you, man, because like you said, Baker Mayfield doesn't have nearly as strong of an arm. He's on a good team. He fits wonderfully in their scheme and everything. But if you need the quarterback to put, the team on their shoulders and take them down the field for a win, I'm definitely in the corner of having Carson over Baker.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Next one, you mentioned young quarterbacks. They're hard to evaluate, but I think this one's been pretty easy to evaluate. Justin Herbert's been pretty damn good this far into his career. It's early on, but all indications are that Justin Herbert's going to be a pretty good NFL quarterback. He's young. He's mobile. He's got a big arm. His future is bright. I'd say right now for me, I think Herbert's probably a little bit higher than Carson Wentz. Just curious your thoughts and your opinions on the Herbert-Wentz debate.
Yeah, and like I said, I'm falling. We really haven't seen Herbert dealing with a lot of diversity, a lot of problems. So there again, I have a problem putting him above Carson just on that. Yes, I agree. Herbert has been lighting the skyways up. He's sort of that Patrick Mahomes light version. You know what I mean? So yeah, I love what I've seen from him early. But there again, if I'm sitting there and I'm building my franchise around this quarterback, he's not done enough to move that needle for me yet.
So you just need to see more, basically.
Absolutely.
100%. Derek Carr, I thought this was a very fair comp. I thought these two guys were so close. You know what I mean? If you want to talk about two people in this whole debate as we go down the list of the 14, 15 people that I have written down, probably the most 1A, 1B situation. You talk about Derek Carr, a guy who's never really gotten a lot of credit in the NFL, but quietly has just been getting better every single year. He's not flashy. There's no doubt about it. But he seems to be having pretty good control and becoming a pretty good leader out there. That being said, I'm going to give the edge to Carson Wentz, basically from the standpoint, I think Carson Wentz has more arm talent, and I think we saw that in that Sunday Night Football game. Carson Wentz, when we needed that big run at the end of that game, that 15-yard, scamper that he had in the rain, in a big game that we had to win, Carson Wentz separated himself from a guy like Derek Carr in that situation, because I'm not sure, Loyalist, if Derek Carr could have ran and made that first down.
Oh, absolutely. And, and the thing with Derek Carr is I like Derek Carr. I think that it's sort of the opposite in a way, because you think about Carson Wentz, everybody's like, oh, he holds the ball too long. Derek Carr is on the other spectrum. He's that quick release guy. He's that guy that's going to, dink and dunk a team. And the thing is if you take that away from him, I agree with you. Derek doesn't have the arm talent to sometimes overcome those defenses that take those short and intermediate away. With Carson Wentz, our thing is more of, hey man, look at the short and intermediate. Take the quick check down every once in a while. So yeah, I like the explosive play value that Carson presents in this. But you're right as far as those two guys. If I had to put it, I would put Carson literally like one level above Derek Carr.
Yeah, 100%. We'll go into Ryan Tannehill. That's a sore subject. We all hate the Tennessee Titans around here. Ryan Tannehill's kind of revamped his career. A guy who looked like he might not even have a chance to even start back in the NFL. Lo and behold, Marcus Mariota gets hurt. Insert Ryan Tannehill, and we know the rest of the history that he's had a pretty good run with the Titans. I look at Tannehill a little bit more than a game manager at this point. I thought he was a game manager at first. I think he's elevated his game, to be fair to him. I still think that Carson Wentz is a superior at every level. I think Carson runs better than Tannehill. I think Carson's arm talent's better than Tannehill. And I think that Carson can probably do a little bit more on those improv plays, those scrambles where he ducks his head and kind of runs out to the left or the right side and just makes something, that backyard football play. Tannehill needs to play into a structure. It needs to go the way the play is designed to go for him to go very well. Now, he can get super hot. He's gotten hot against us before. But that being said, if you get Tannehill rushed or flustered, we know, we played him a few weeks ago. The guy literally threw the ball straight to Darius Leonard, unprovoked as far as that goes. I'm going to pick Carson Wentz, and this isn't just a homer move. I think Carson Wentz is truly a better quarterback than Ryan Tannehill.
Okay. And for me, this just basically boils down to production. Because, yes, I agree that your points as far as what Carson's advantages are, but I feel like Tannehill's advantages are reading the defenses, getting the team set up pre-snap, and then also he seems to go through his progressions quicker than we see Carson. And like I said, that's no slight to Carson, but in the team that he's currently with, the Titans and stuff, he's a perfect quarterback. He can throw the deep ball. He's fairly accurate with the deep ball. So is Carson. But there again, both of these quarterbacks are really benefited by a strong run game. So that's, for me, these guys need that strong run game to help set up their pass game. Carson, he, like you said, he's more of that creator. He's more of that, I can go outside of the play and create, and more of that Russell Wilson type of play style. I like Tannehill a ton, and to sit there and say I would pick him over Carson, yeah, it just depends on the team that you're putting him on and stuff. But for this Colts team, yeah, I'm all for Carson Wentz.
100%, man. You just alluded to Russell Wilson. I think Russell Wilson, obviously, he's hurt, but I think we all know who Russell Wilson is. We saw him throw the bombs, in week one against us. I think a future Hall of Famer, loyalist. I think Russell Wilson's a really, really good quarterback. And I can almost see why he wants out of Seattle. He wants to win again, and it's been a long time, right? Like we forget how long it's been. We all keep kind of talking about, Legion of Boom, Legion of Boom. Well, that shit's over with, man. It's way over with. And he's kind of on his own. He has two really, really talented wide receivers, but they haven't done a lot else to put a good football team around him. But I'd say at this stage of his career, I'd say Russell's probably a little bit ahead of Carson Wentz at this point.
Oh, absolutely. Because for me, we sit there and we discuss, how well Lamar Jackson sits there and performs on the run. Russell Wilson, he does that, but he does it with the option to pass first. You know what I mean? Whereas Lamar's more of the run first guy. Yeah, Russell Wilson, the way he can just extend plays and he doesn't just beat you on these plays that he extends. He's like Aaron Rodgers-esque. He rips your heart out. He extends the play to just totally take your soul away. So, I Russell Wilson's a bad man.
Yeah, you're exactly right, man. It's kind of crazy. You keep segueing into my next guy, loyalist, and my next guy is Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers, we don't need to spend much time on this. Aaron Rodgers is a Hall of Fame elite, one of the best to ever lace them up in the NFL. I think we can all agree we're Colts fans. We love Carson Wentz, but Aaron Rodgers is a little bit ahead of Carson Wentz at this stage of his career.
Yes, sir.
Next one's kind of cool and kind of debatable. Kirk Cousins, guy's having a pretty good year and has always never really had an issue throwing the football. For Kirk Cousins, it's always been about right here, right? He'll make some timely, costly errors for his football team. But when we just talk about pure arm talent and a guy who can actually throw the football around the yard, Kirk Cousins is pretty good, man. If you look at his numbers over his career, he's been solid and he's remained a starter. A lot of people thought he would get seated early on in his career, when he took over in Minnesota, but he's found a way. He's found a way to keep on the field. I still think that Carson's better than Kirk, though. I would have to go Carson over Kirk in this situation. That's just me. I'd say Kirk is limited in certain areas, and certainly Kirk cannot take off and run. Carson's going to be able to take off and run. I don't want to call him a Phillip Rivers statue, but he's pretty immobile. When he's back there, he's back there to pass. He's not a threat to really do anything else. Where are you at with Kirk Cousins and Carson Wentz?
It sounds like you're actually a little higher on Kirk Cousins than I am, because for me personally, Kirk Cousins and Carson Wentz, they both have gone through the rough path, the hard path to get to be that lead franchise quarterback in their organizations. You know what I mean? But the thing is you sit there and you look at Kirk Cousins, like you said, when the pocket starts collapsing, you just feel like Carson's going to shrug off a couple guys, come rolling out. Whereas you see Kirk Cousins, he just sort of panics and just, fetal position and lives to fight the next play. And the mobility is just, it's not even comparable as far as that goes. And yes, I think Kirk Cousins throws a good long ball, but Carson throws an immaculate long ball. Even when these guys are missing them, the placement of these passes are really good. Even in the torrential storm that we got to witness this Sunday, everybody's talking about how those passes were underthrown, but for me, those passes were perfectly thrown because they were aware that the secondary was real grabby and handsy. So you want to play to that strength. You want to let your receivers adapt and have the advantage of knowing where the ball is, and the defender didn't, and it worked out perfectly.
100%, man. I'm thrilled with the progression of Carson Wentz as this season has went on. He had so many hurdles to get over at the beginning of the season. A, he had the injury. B, COVID comes back and creeps in when he's trying to get ready, for the regular season. This system, he didn't really have a chance to really get comfortable in this system. And then lo and behold, once he's starting to grasp it, then he has the injury, the ankle injury. Now he's got to fight through the ankle injury against the Tennessee game. Ever since that week, though, I feel like Carson Wentz is starting to climb and starting to get much more confident. And he's coming into his own, man. He's a solid quarterback. Next on the list, it's kind of an interesting one, loyalist, Matt Ryan. The guy's had from a number standpoint, has had a really good career. But ever since early on in his career, I think they made that Super Bowl. He hasn't really been able to string anything together and get a whole lot further. For me, I'm going to choose Carson Wentz over Matt Ryan as well. Matt Ryan's not a super mobile guy either. Not a terrible quarterback. I mean, you could have far worse options than Matt Ryan out there. But I'll take Carson Wentz 10 out of 10 over Matt Ryan.
Yeah, and for me, this one boils down to a lot of where they're at in their careers currently. You know, I mean, Matt Ryan, I feel like, is sort of on the tail end of his career, and I honestly believe that Carson Wentz, he's in the the meat and potatoes part of his career. This is where he's going to make his name in the history of the league. So yeah, and Matt Ryan, whenever he was stroking it with Julio and the Falcons were really rolling and stuff, that would have been a much tougher decision than what we're seeing now in the last couple years from him. So yeah, I would take Carson easily.
Next guy, I'm going to just say his name and skip over it real fast. We don't need to really talk a lot about Tom Brady.
Okay, fair enough.
The guy's been, whether we like it or not, the guy is just, it never stops, never ends, just continues to keep producing and winning football games in the NFL. What can you say, man? I mean, it's much.
You said it all, man. The dude just, he's like that Energizer bunny. You're just waiting for that battery to start running down.
And it ain't ever going to die.
No, endless supply, it seems like.
Exactly. Last guy on the list, Dak Prescott. Kind of interesting. These guys are fairly comparable in player styles. When we talk about the way they want to play, they can use their feet, but they're throw-first quarterbacks. They're mobile enough to elude the pocket, but they, generally speaking, Carson and Dak both want to use their arms because they have really good arms. Now, I would say that Carson has a stronger arm than Dak Prescott has, but I'd say at this point, up until this point, and before this season, Dak's probably been a little bit better decision maker. I think he's not turned the ball over quite as much as Carson had previously, but I think they're much closer now. Dak's having what a lot of people would say almost an MVP type season. I think Dak's probably a little bit better at this stage right now, but it's probably closer than most people would think.
Yeah, and for me, this is another one of those. Carson Wentz didn't really have the benefit of having exceptional people to pass the ball to, outside of his tight ends. I mean, he occasionally had a receiver that would step up, but you look at what Dak has been, given, basically in his entire career there in Dallas. I mean, if Carson had those guys to throw to his whole career, I would say that this would flip. You know what I mean? Because like you said, I do believe that these guys are very close. I enjoy watching Dak Prescott, but let's be honest, some of those receivers, CeeDee Lamb and some of them other guys, have really been able to get that separation and make some of those longer passes a lot easier to complete.
So going through this list, it was kind of interesting. I was curious your thoughts and the way we would all do it, but it turns out to be that Carson Wentz actually would be a top 10 quarterback on this list. I felt like the best 14 quarterbacks in the NFL. We actually chose him ahead of about 4 or 5 of those guys. So he would be a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. And I think anytime you get a quarterback loyalist that can be a top 10 quarterback and he continues to get better and continues to grow, you have a chance in January, right? Because that's what it's all about. You get in the playoffs and you just don't know what's going to happen. I mean, you have these teams who have these great seasons. They go to the Super Bowl and life goes on. But you also have these teams that are wildcard teams that find a way to get hot late. And I can see that happening with Carson Wentz. I can see that confidence growing. I'm wishing for his hope. But before you get off here, man, just explain to me your perspective of Carson Wentz so far, 7 games in the season. How do you feel about him as our leader and as our quarterback moving forward? Do you think we finally have the quarterback of our future and we're good, or are there still questions you need to have answered before you're ready to go there?
Okay, as far as the play on the field, I'm totally satisfied with it. Because like I said, I didn't think we needed to have an MVP quarterback. That's sort of like, wasting it a little bit because this is such a run-heavy team. This offensive line is such a figure piece for, so you just want to have that quarterback who can make, cover up some of your mistakes, whenever you have them. And then also just keep feeding the right guys and making the right decision. And I mean, Carson Wentz has done spectacular at that. 3 turnovers for the entire season? I mean, granted, the 2 inside the 5 yard is like, dude, you're killing me with that. But I mean, when you start sitting there and comparing, turnovers to touchdowns. And yeah, Carson Wentz has achieved everything. And then you ask me about leadership. I feel like he came in the offseason and just started laying the groundwork, and he has been everything and then some. I've been following a little bit of his AO1. He's really awesome in the community and stuff. So it's just, if Carson hasn't silenced enough people and shown people that this is what you wanted, then honestly, those are the people that I feel like we're expecting Peyton Manning to walk through that door every time. And I think we're starting to come to the realization that he was extremely special, and we were grateful to have him.
Absolutely, 100%. Yeah, I think that's not reasonable expectations, right? Like if you expect that guy to come in your door, you could play 100 years of football. I was telling Steven this the other day. You could play 100 years of football and never have a Peyton Manning ever walk back in your door. That's no slight on whoever else walks in your door. Andrew Luck was a really good quarterback while in his limited time here. Carson Wentz has the potential to be a really good quarterback while he's here. But Peyton Manning, is a legendary Hall of Fame, top 5 player in the NFL history. That's just so rare, to think. And I have high hopes for Carson, honestly. I think Carson can do special things. He's already started to prove it. I think the more I watch Carson, the more I like him, because he's starting to develop this grit about him. We've all heard about Carson being that competitor, never wants to give up on a play. He's kind of compared to Andrew Luck. I can start to see that a little bit. I thought Andrew Luck was a little bit better decision maker, at that point in his career. But Carson's special, man. I think he can elevate his game even higher. And like you mentioned, we don't need him to be an MVP, right? Like he had an MVP type of season in Philadelphia in 2017. We just need him to be really good and to make a couple special throws a game, just like he made, to Michael Pittman to ice that game. I love that he trusts his wide receiver, threw that ball up there and said, let's go, man. Let's go get it. Let's go win this game right now. We're not going to worry about a field goal. We're not going to worry about the weather. Last thing I want to talk about before we get off here, because I'm just a huge proponent of the run game, and you alluded to it earlier. My man, Chris Reed. Come on, man. We're blowing him on the podcast every day this week. I'm not stopping. I'm on the Chris Reed train. I told everybody you might want to mute me if you don't want to hear about Chris Reed, because every single podcast I do this week is going to have a part of Chris Reed in it. Earned the starting job. Unexpected. No one really, he kind of came out of nowhere and has earned the right to be on the football field, take more snaps, and I believe ultimately will be your starting right guard moving forward. Just wanted to get your sentiment and your thoughts on Chris Reed as the season's progressing.
Well, I'll be honest. When the trade was done and stuff, I didn't, really know fully who Chris Reed was, and I started digging into his film work and stuff. And I kid you not, within the first week of digging into the film and stuff, I told Lawrence on our show, I was like, this is going to be the guy that Chris Ballard's going to hang. I seriously, before a snap, seeing him in training camp or anything, I was like, this guy's going to be the guy that's going to, Chris Ballard. Because whenever I seen that he picked up, Julian Davenport, I was just like, wah, wah. And then Sam Tevy, I was like, I don't know. And I watched the film and I was just still like, undecided. I felt like he was a lot better than Davenport, but yeah, Chris Reed, when I watched his film, I was just like, heck yeah, this dude. I loved what I saw from him with the Panthers, and like you said, he's a little bit younger than Glowinski, and he has just come out and forced the coaches and Chris Ballard and stuff to honestly say, we can't take him off the field. We like what he gives us in the run game. We like that, so I'm curious to see that if he's playing himself out of us being able to afford him, because obviously we could sit there and see Glowinski as a good fallback plan, or hopefully, like I heard you say yesterday's show, maybe we can keep them both and just Glowinski understanding, hey, you see how many times the backup makes it in, so you're still going to get your snaps, and if he's willing to accept that, that's the best of both worlds. But yeah, like I said, when I seen Reed tape just after looking into him and stuff, I was super hyped because I did see a lot of similarities in the way he chooses to play the game and the way Q chooses to play the game. You see that mental, they don't just want to sit there and contain their guy. They want to demoralize their guy. They want to make sure that their guy, when he comes back at him for the second play and the 10th play, they know okay, pack my lunch, let's go. It's a long day.
Hey, you are 100% right. Like I mentioned earlier in the podcast, early in the week, Loyalist, my man loves contact. Like he's not shying away from it. Like, and if he doesn't have anybody to make contact with, he's gonna go find somebody to make contact with. Like he enjoys that part of football. I think you blend with Big Q together on those combo blocks, and you're talking about two guys that can drive just about anybody in the NFL. I'm circling the calendar. I want to see it man to man. I want to see how we block up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this year, because everybody knows how hard it is to run against the Bucs. But if you got Chris Reed, you got Big Q, you got Ryan Kelly, Braden Smith healthy, Eric Fisher's doing really good in the run game, not so good in the pass game. You got 5 guys that can block, man. I mean, you've got 5 guys that can put it on you. And I'd love to see Jonathan Taylor go out there and crack them for 100 yards. And, that'd be kind of a feather in our cap. And good on Chris Ballard, man, for going out there and getting him. Loyalist, thank you so much for joining this podcast. I know I just literally reached out to you this morning. Guys, he was so cool. He just reached right back to me. He's like, hey, I can get to you here in a couple hours. So it was fun having you on. We'll have you on again down the road. Thank you so much, man, and we'll see you soon.
All right, man. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.